I believed in secularization theory because everyone else did. It wasn't crazy. There were some good reasons for it. Its basic proposition was very simple: the more modern, the less religious. Okay? It took me about 25 years to conclude that this was a mistake. It was empirically untenable because of what I said in my first thesis. The world is not becoming ever more secular. The world is becoming, or not becoming, remains strongly religious. But where secularization theory wasn't completely wrong, and well, by the way, Taylor's book is still quite interesting to read, even if you don't accept the implication of the title. Every modern society needs a secular space. The basic reason for this is science and technology. You cannot have a modern society without at least a minimum of technology. My favorite method of thinking is free association. And I mentioned Judaism, let me mention a Jewish example that comes to mind and landed in my notes. I know a very successful Jewish surgeon in Boston. He's a practicing Orthodox Jew, I guess modern Jewish in terms of the Jewish denominationalism. In fact, he wears a yarmulke in his office. He's a very, very nice man. His patients love him. He's very warm. He's a mensch, as they say in Yiddish. And I think it has something to do with his religion. He regards his vocation, I don't know him very well, but his vocation as a mandate for every pious Jew to help in the repair of the universe, which has many flaws, and human beings can help correct those flaws. But when he enters the operating room, you couldn't tell whether he wears a yarmulke because he has this cap on, and everything he does must be by strictly secular discourse. And his being a practicing Jew is irrelevant. If he has a problem in the course of the surgery, he cannot consult the Talmud. He has to operate exactly as if he were a Buddhist or a Presbyterian or an atheist or whatever. Secular discourse. It's not only, well, the hospital is a temple of modernity, but let's not go into this. We recently had a fascinating conference on that at VU. But it's constantly infiltrated by religion. Hospital chaplains visiting clergy and relatives, patients who pray, nurses who have prayer circles, medical faculties who are interested in alternative healing methods, which usually are either from India or from China. It's not isolated from religion. It interacts with religion. And I think this is very important to understand. I recently came on the writings of a famous Dutch jurist of the 17th century, Hugo Grotius, one of the founders of modern international law. And he wrote that his new discipline was to be handled as if God did not exist. Now, that was not a statement of philosophical atheism, it was a methodological statement. Grotius himself was a pious Protestant. He was an Arminian, which I would call the more humane version of the Dutch Reformation. And he was kicked out of the newly independent Netherlands by the Calvinists who were then in charge. But international law was not going to be based on his religion. It couldn't be. By the time he wrote, European states, some defined themselves as Catholic, some as Protestant, Anglican, Lutheran, Calvinist. Then you had Orthodox Russia, and you had the Ottoman Empire. International law that would be applicable to all of them would have to be religiously neutral. It couldn't be any particular religion. But it expanded into other areas of life, certainly expanded into domestic law. An American judge who operates under state law or under federal law has whatever his religion or lack of religion may be, he cannot apply it to the case which he's supposed to judge. He has to bracket his religion. He operates in secular space. That secular space also has to be managed. And what has to be managed is the dividing lines between religious spaces and the secular space. And in the United States today, there are constant litigation well, America is the most litigational society on earth. People constantly sue each other. It's a national pastime. I'm still looking for somebody plausible to sue. I haven't found one. Deep pockets, probably. So the secular space is very important, and in itself, it can become a foundation of religious freedom, because religious freedom is a prerogative. It's a very efficient way of handling both pluralisms. Let me then say again something that goes against what many people think. Religion and secularity, for most people who are religious, is not a question of either or. It's a question of both and. And you don't have to travel very far from where we are now to experience this every day. For the last few years, I periodically taught at the Baptist University in Texas. And there you meet people who are intensely religious, but are as modern as you can get. Petroleum engineers, brain surgeons, you name it. It's not either or, it's both and. Sometimes there are tensions, sometimes there are not.